Awesome. I'm really super excited to have this tea ceremony. And I've always loved the spaces that you guys curate with Mogu Magu because I feel like it attracts aligned people and people who really care. And I always learn something interesting with cannabis, which is just so special. So talk me through what we have on the table right now.
So what we have here, actually I'm going to turn this little guy around, is some a beautiful tea set to do Kung Fu tea, or a traditional Chinese tea ceremony. And depending on what region you're in, everybody kind of does it a little bit differently. And this piece is called Dringware. It's one of the 5 great kilns of Chinese like porcelain ware, because throughout different dynasties and different aesthetic influences and different techniques develop, there were 5 great kilns throughout China that are popularized different styles. So this is the Dringware style. And what's cool about it is, and I met the guy who made this, so everything is handmade, and I got to meet the artisans and talk to them. And what's cool about this, and why I picked it for today to share with you, is because when you put dringware in the kiln, you don't really know what the end product's gonna look like. You know it's gonna produce shades of purple and red and blue, but you don't know exactly how it's gonna materialize until you take it out. Which, yeah, so I really like that, like, unknown.
Yes.
And, I think it really, to me personally, resonated with me because it kind of signifies the surrendering to the art and beauty of what naturally just occurs. And, it's a moment to meditate, when you brew tea, and to enjoy and savor on those kind of notes. So that's why this one meant so much to me. And also it's like the river. This symbolizes like the rivers and the mountains regions of China. There's a little boat right here. So there's a lot of intricate details in every single piece that you can really just get lost and mesmerized in. So tea time is like, savoring the beauty of this art and also savoring the beauty that's all around you.
Wow.
And these little things, this walnut and this little guy, these are called tea pets. So tea pets are really big, and this thing too, this little bug. Tea pets are also really fun because it just kind of further accentuates the idea of this tea time.
Yeah.
It's not only meditative and reflection on insights, but it doesn't have to be so serious and looming all the time. There is a joy and playfulness and a not seriousness to the stillness. So this guy symbolizes like calmness, peace, and meditation. He's like an old wise guy. And then this is a walnut, and walnut in translation in Chinese is together peach, because it kind of looks like a peach, but it's like 2 halves together.
Wow.
So it symbolizes like the union of, a couple. So this one's actually my husband Wesley's. He picked it out on our first trip to China when I brought him to my hometown.
Oh my gosh.
So sweet.
Yeah, so you're supposed to like let the tea rain on them, and they'll also get patina over time. Some people even have little brushes that they brush on their tea pets. Yeah, so it's just like a really fun moment. And the kind of tea we're gonna do today is called Kung Fu tea. So it's a series of quick infusions, so you can taste the full expression of the tea. So every steep is gonna taste different, and you're gonna get different notes. Versus like if you brew tea in like a cup like this, for example, and you put a little tea on the bottom, you brew tea, then all of those top, middle, bottom base notes are all going to be kind of like together, and you're savoring it together. Versus the way we're going to do it, we're splitting those flavors apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is so like giving me chills right now, because 2025 for me is all about surrender and all about embracing the unknown, because that is like, if you want to talk about where my comfort zone never is, it's in that area. But I realized that there's this like infinite potential in the unknown. And practically everything I want, everything I don't know that I want is in that space. And so I was like, I'm going to go over there. So when you said that that's what this represents, without me even knowing, I was like, holy crap. Like, that's the most aligned thing you could have said. Just even how these teacups and pots even came to be. I'm like, oh my God, that's so great. It's like, you don't know how it's going to turn out, but you just know it's going to be great.
Yeah.
So what are we looking for? What are we listening out for? Is it like an intuitive thing? Is it a particular smell, a particular texture? Because I could just, look like I know what I'm doing, but I really don't. And I feel like most people don't. So how do you know that you're like, okay, this is the one that I want to do for my session?
I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to personal preference.
Yeah.
Because some people will not like very floral things. So I've heard like, oh, it's too perfumey or blah, blah, blah. But like, I love floral things. So sometimes it's about following your nose. So of course, if you have dry old bud or dry old tea that's not fresh or, not stored right, then it's not going to smell like anything.
Yeah.
So make sure it's aromatic and looks very healthy. Like if you look at this tea, it's so, so beautiful. And then, but yeah, take a sniff. It's like very...
And then sniff them together too. That's also like with the pairing, right? Now you're getting an aromatic pairing when you're putting together. Okay.
Oh, you just said a word, aromatic pairing.
Oh my God, yeah.
Isn't that fun? Yeah,
That
because
is so fun.
So this flower from Moon Made Farms is so this is organic, sun grown from our friend Tina Gordon. She's one of the few like Asian women farmers up in Humboldt, and we just love the way that she grows because it's like in the very similar way that we grow our gardens here.
Wow.
For this car.
I'm going to find the first excuse to use the term aromatic pairing.
Yeah, so now you
That
can
I
get an idea of
possibly
like you can smell the two together. And so like let's talk about the flavor and notes of the flower. So this one that we're smoking is Fantasy Island. It's a cross of Hawaiian Fanta and Pineapple Wonder. So both Hawaiian Fanta and Pineapple Wonder are like really tropical, bright, fruity notes. And it's like, so this is gonna have really like uplifting, I call it like a good daytime weed. It's gonna be like happy. You can tell by the way it smells.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's giving. It's the tropicalness. And so that with like the little bit of caffeine that's gonna be in this jasmine tea is gonna have such a nice like soft rounded combo. And then if you smell the notes from the tea, it's like grassy and floral. Like the floralness pairs well with the tropicalness of this. So it's like, it's interesting because normally when I'm cooking and baking, like we're going to make some garam masala cookies. Like I don't get to know what the infusion tastes like until the very end.
Yeah.
Like, you can kind of smell it all together, but like a baked cookie has a very specific scent.
Yeah.
And like, but with this, like, all right, cool. Like we kind of get a little preview of what we're going to taste.
Yeah.
I
a little
love that.
preview, but it could also taste very different, right? Like sometimes things could smell a certain way, but maybe it tastes different. Maybe something that's floral and citrusy, maybe the taste is more floral forward, or sometimes maybe it's more citrus forward. So
Yeah.
I don't know, shall I roll us a joint?
Yes. It's kind of like wine, where in a sense where you might get like petroleum on the nose, but then it tastes dry and like whetstone on the palate. So you're like, oh, this doesn't taste like gas. This, it's really interesting how those differences happen. Just makes me think how we're all connected. Like when you see different patterns in nature showing up in bodies, and then showing up on a tree, and then showing up in like the molecular structure of a plant, it's like, oh my God, we are the same, which is a very high thought to have. But it's true. It's like, where you're like, man,
so
I have...
sticky. See, now it's like I grind it. It's got a gassiness to it.
Yeah.
That wasn't there before.
Which is also nice, right? And something so ritualistic about smoking cannabis and drinking tea is you keep smelling and taking in throughout the process of preparing it. So you're getting to like really appreciate it in all its form.
I think that appreciation too is a part of like smoking responsibly. We're always taught to like consume things responsibly, and I think what we think is don't overdo it, but another level to that is do it in appreciation. Like appreciate all of those little things because that came up with all the micro decisions in the growing process.
Exactly.
So we get to appreciate that too, and that's a part of the responsibility to be like, hey, like I see all the little subtleties and how it all came out.
You got it. It's my favorite part. So when you look at sun-grown, really good quality sun-grown flower, when you open it, and like after it's fresh ground, if you look at it and like kind of give it a little jiggle, it like moves.
Oh yeah, I love putting it to one side and letting it flow to the other
side. It's like that play sand. Like
yeah. Or like what's the topping you put on okonomiyaki? The little
bonito flakes. Good bonito flakes.
Exactly.
Moves.
So it's like that's what it means. Like it moves, it breathes.
It's
that's
alive.
how you know it's still fresh, right? Like you can see it like still moving and breathing.
She's alive.
Yeah. So like if you give it a little like little nudge, like you can see
you can
it.
even like tilt it a little bit.
Oh my gosh. I think it's so interesting how plants, food, animals that we eat or don't eat have their own brand of PR. Like at one point, lobster was like, get that out of here. And now it's the premium.
Yeah.
So it's just so funny how the messaging continues, even just with cannabis. Like I was the DARE, generation. We were wearing the black t-shirts, DARE. And it was just like, don't do it. You're going to die. You're going to be an addict and you're going to be homeless.
This is your brain on
street,
drugs.
And then they would bring in a lung and you're like, whose lung is that? And it's like, sure, there's all of the conversation about what's healthy and what's not healthy, but it's just so nuanced. And this is what I love about Mogu Magu and like the space that y'all hold is that you leave so much space for nuance. Like earlier you were like, this is too much, this is overwhelming. I was like, give it to them. Let them sit in that. Because even if it hits them while they're sitting in traffic on the 405, they're like, damn, that's what, Wendy was talking about. Like, that's what that's for. Because we can't just say, oh, let's simplify when life is so much more complicated than that.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
That's
Recently I heard somebody say, why do we keep saying anti-intellectualism? We should say pro-stupid, like, because there's definitely a rise of like anti-intellectualism, of like, oh, you're being too political. It's like, okay, but
that's life.
We do food.
Yeah.
I like work in food. Food is inherently political.
Right.
And our food systems are very, very political. And so, like, if you don't want to acknowledge it, that's
another
pro-stupid.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, so this is a really beautiful fuzzy snow green tea with jasmine flowers. And the fuzzy green silver tips, they're usually like the young ones, and it's really, really aromatic. Actually, I need to get you a teacup.
Oh my gosh.
But I kind of want you
pick
to.
a teacup.
Exactly. I almost picked one out for her.
Ooh.
But I kind of wanted you to pick it out yourself, because this is the one that I picked out for me and Christina to match this. But here, should we go on a side quest? Met all these different styles of artisans, and I bought things from their booths. And like I was there for 2 days, 6 hours each day, constantly looking and talking and drinking tea and just immersing in tea culture. So because where I'm from, Chengdu, it's like the tea capital of the world.
Yeah.
Not in the sense that like Yunnan, right, birthplace of tea. There's more regions who produce more tea, but Chengdu has such a tea house culture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, every single one is different. This one's like my favorite. Because it's so simple, but it's so cute.
It is so cute.
Right? They all have their own little personalities.
You can tell that exactly. Like
this one's fun. It's more geometric and futuristic.
Wow. Oh my god, this one.
Right? It's so pretty.
I love that color. This is my color. This is like what I wear. I'll be like, I need another mustard thing.
And this one's a lotus leaf.
Mmm.
And they're all like handmade. But yeah, these are the little teacups. You can pick any of these teacups to.
Gosh, how do I pick? This one is speaking to me. I love this. I don't even know why.
I like what you said too about like, you know, how it's like everything's flows, like you don't know how things are going to turn out. You're saying that resonated so well with you. Like, I feel like we are so conditioned to control every aspect and everything around us, right? Like, go to college, get this job, go to apply, like adhere to these standards, do these things, achieve this, and like everything is so, the outcome seems to be so controlled, but like I think it's so beautiful when you can learn to like let go and just like flow with it and accept what life gives you. And like just like this beautiful pottery, just like the water that flows around, and it's like when we're in flow it's so much easier, and like it's, I don't know, what a gift.
I feel like it's so limiting to just try to control things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you think about where that comes from, it's like just based off our past experiences, you know? We're always trying to control things based on what we've experienced, and we're letting our past experiences and how others have treated us to define us and how we act in the world. It's just limiting. Versus if you surrender and open yourself up to the possibilities, you don't even know what you have to gain.
Yeah.
You know, it's much easier for our human brains to think about what we have to lose. And so we're always, because we've already experienced it, it's the known. We already know what we can lose and what we can risk, but we don't know what we can gain. So it's easier to focus on that scarcity, losing mindset rather than the abundance of the unknown.
That was just going to say that is abundance thinking, because one of the sort of, I guess, cliche sayings I hear about wealthy people is that they don't think about what it's going to cost. They think, what am I going to get in return when they make any purchases? And I really like that mindset shift, because for one, I think when it comes to the unknown, what I control is so limiting, like you said. And I feel like I don't know what's best. Like, we're taught that we're supposed to know what's best, but I finally realized I don't know what's best. I think some other entity knows that. So why not trust someone that knows better or knows more, even if I don't understand what that quite is yet, and let that decide instead of my very small view.
Yeah. Would you like more?
I'm okay. This is like the perfect.
I thought I had an edible. I was like, why is it high?
Yeah. So you've been to a couple of Mogu Magus.
Yes.
Like, what attracted you to Mogu Magu?
I loved the connection to cannabis in a way, because weed was not a big part of my life. It was just sort of this peer pressure thing that I felt like if I didn't have comfortability with, I wouldn't have friends, like, if I'm being totally honest. And so I kind of forced myself into it when I was in college, not because I genuinely wanted to, but I honestly feel like it was one of those things that when you said, oh, I don't do this, it was this big conversation. And Mogu Magu, the first thing that came up for me was like, oh, there's like safety here. Like, I don't have to know all the things. I don't have to be clever and have the perfect rolling technique. And I can have my own relationship to cannabis, not the culture's relationship to cannabis, where it means I'm just trying to get fucked up, or it means that I'm just trying to go fuck, or like whatever the thing is. It's like I can have, whether it's the tools that I use, whether it's like a pipe that I like and not some weird DIY bong from like a college dorm. It's like, it, you know, I was like, oh, I can, and of course that thought resonates everywhere. Like, I can have my own relationship with reading, or my own relationship with movement, or anything like that. It doesn't have to be what was like prescribed. And I was desperately looking for like not just diverse friends, because I think the conversation of diversity is so limiting, but like aligned people. Like, because it's like, okay, I'm Black, but I'm not just Black. I'm Black and I think about these things, and I love food, and I'm creative, and I have these very off the wall like thoughts and beliefs. And so more of those things, it's like diversity in intellectualism, you know, diversity in thinking, diversity in like perspective and questions that you're asking, and you know, like it's hard to find that. And so I'm like, it's not just a space full of people of color, because I could still feel very ostracized in that space. And what I love about Mogu Magu space is no matter how different the focus is that day, it's like I always feel you know, like I belong, even if I'm the only for whatever reason, even if it's like Dia de los Muertos, like I still feel like I belong because the values are there. And so that's like, that is something that's really, really special. And, you know, I just hope that it takes off and beyond what you even want and feel comfortable with, because this is so needed. This is so, I can count on one hand I've had experiences like this in such safety and such openness and like stuff that you never tried before. It's like, this is what I like live for, you know? So that's, I mean, that's my answer.
Aw, that makes it like warms my heart to hear you say that, because it's just like hearing what your takeaway is just so much deeper than anything I think for me personally that I could have imagined. Like we just kind of started this being like, well, like we're really enjoying this and we get to experience this. Like it kind of feels like when we host Mogu Magu events, it's like we just want to like introduce cool people to each other and like introduce you to all these cool weed things that we get to experience and play with.
Yeah, and the cultural exploration too,
Yeah.
you know? Like being in LA and being in America, you know, we always talk about the melting pot, you know, and part of that is true. It's like, you know, we do have exposure to so much diversity of people from different backgrounds, but also like we also have this shared third culture experience, you know, and that's what we really try to bring with Mogu Magu is making sure we're also doing that. We're making the connection and like kind of like you're saying about aligned people, you know, especially now it's so important to organize. And, you know, organizing doesn't just look like picketing and like, you know, protesting. It also looks like some of the downtime when you're just planning and organizing and creating community and creating trust and building interdependency, but not codependency. And it's really important to do that in a way that we think in a way through joy, you know, and so that's definitely something we try to bring.
That trust is such a huge piece, because I feel like what I see in the Asian communities that I've always admired is how tight they are. And in that tightness, I thought, man, I guess I can't go over there. And like what I love about this is like, oh, I can go over there. I can have like close, intimate friend like who's Asian. I can connect. I can like go deeper and like finally find an excuse to go to China and have something that I know I would do and love and enjoy. And that's really cool too, is building that trust. The last event you had hosted, you talked about, you know, it's not just my Asian experience. It's like there's all these other ethnic groups that have their own experience with like the broader diasporic conversation, and we're trying to make sure that we make that connection. And I loved that, because the same parallel happens in the Black community too, but then even cross-culturally, it's like we can support each other. We can like heal like all of our differences without it feeling like we're playing the oppression Olympics, but also being like, here's why it's the same, and here's why we're on the same team, and finding that connection that honors those differences. See that it can be done is like really, like it's really healing.
Yeah. I mean, I always said, you know, having the Black and also Asian conversation is so crucial to having the dismantling white supremacy conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because like throughout American history, Black community and Asian communities have been pitted against each other, either directly or more in subtle political ways, you know, even with like in LA specifically, you know? And so like these narratives about the communities to each other have been so harmful to eroding that trust, you know? But growing up in Memphis, I can tell you that when I moved to Memphis from Chengdu in China, I found more a sense of community and openness and friendship with my Black friends, you know, than the Asians. Because like you're saying, from the outside, it might look like, you know, all Asians are Thai. And in some groups, and it really is, and it's so beautiful. But in some groups, it's just this homogenized, like social pressure, you know, not actually inclusive cliquiness. And so I didn't really feel that way. That kind of sense of camaraderie with a lot of Asians that I was growing up with. like, and I found more of that with like the Black community.
Yeah.
You know,
Especially in Memphis. I feel like it's like entering as a visitor, tough. Being from there, growing up there, clutch. Like the best community you'll ever find. You can actually recite Glorilla lyrics and actually mean it. It's like, that is...
Yeah, so that really shaped my like American experience, you know, growing up there. And so like it always was so clear to me, like, hey, dismantling white supremacy and creating more equity always comes with us not buying into, and I think especially on the roles of like Asians, specifically East Asians, right, who are the most white aligning on the hierarchy, it's us being able to give up privileges, being able to risk privileges and our own comfort to like dismantle the whole thing.
Yeah.
But so many people don't zoom out and think about it like that. You know, it's so much about, well, we were hurt, we were harmed, and you know, it's not easy for us too. And you know, there's been so much oppression and discrimination against our people. I think sometimes when you haven't healed some of your own wounds, it's hard to zoom out and look at the bigger picture of what we must give up to achieve the bigger goal.
I think too, it's like a slingshot where you think you're taking a step back, but it's just so you can get momentum to go forward with that much more energy. And so a lot of times when folks who have more privilege, even something like being cisgendered, where you think, do we really need to do all of this for the trans community?
Exactly.
And I'm like, yes, because girl,
you should be
by
starting
the time
there.
that healthcare comes around, trust me, we're gonna get what we need. So it's really just seeing it for what it really is too. Like, you know, it's just a short-term sacrifice for a long-term, massive gain.
You know, another thing that has been really cool to come out of Mogu Magu is, you know, because it kind of started as us like projecting out this really beautiful sesh that we share and how we grew our friendship, you know, by like smoking really good weed and eating really good food and unpacking some personal shit, you know, and some shared experiences. And we're like, how do we do this for the larger community? And what's been cool is to see how much everybody gravitates to the mysticism of this Magu figure that we're reviving. And of course, part of it's on purpose. We've done like photo shoots, we've done live fashion shows to kind of literally create those imagery. So
and to tell the story, to retell the story in
you should tell her about
modern
Magu.
ways. Yeah, so like so Mogu Magu, Mogu means mushroom, and Magu is the hemp goddess of longevity. She is a Taoist deity. So the stories of her that have been written by different scholars and various like ancient texts, like have her, like she has a life as like a woman, as like her mortal being, and like she's known as the protector of women and children, and all these deeds that she did got her elevated to be a deity status. So her mortal self, there's this beautiful story about Magu that I love, and it's about her and this old woman and the peach tree. And so she was on her way home, and she had somehow gotten a peach from somebody, from a client, and on her way home she saw an old woman on the side of the street who was hungry and begging. And so she gave the woman, she's like, I don't have any food on me, but I have this peach, take this peach and let me go home and cook you some food. So she went home to go cook her some food, and then her father came home and saw that she was like taking their resources to feed this old beggar woman, and like got angry at her and like locked her in her room so she couldn't get out and feed the woman. So by the time she escaped and like got the food and got back to where the woman was, the old woman was gone. All that was left was the peach stone. And so she took the peach stone and planted it in the center of her village and nurtured it and grew it into this big beautiful peach tree that would feed all of the people in this village for free. And I really love that story of her, because it's this reminder that like this simple act of kindness, just taking care of others, feeding people with food, and like taking something that is a discard and planting it and nurturing it in the ground, like turns into something that can feed an entire community, rather than like this ideal that her father of like, right, like this is ours, this is mine. She was like, no, like we can feed everybody with this one thing. And, you know, that was kind of the main story of Magu. There's many others, but, you know, her as a deity She's said to live on Mount Tai, which is the largest mountains in China, and it connects the heavens and the earth.
Wow.
And so Magu and the other deities, like the gods and the goddesses and Taoism, descend from the heaven and earth through this mountain. They live up there. And she supposedly brews the elixir of life made from like foraged herbs and flowers and plants and fungi from the mountain. And so in China, like, this area was known for growing hemp, because hemp was used for fibers, it was used for medicine. It was written about by Emperor Shenneng in the Pharmacopoeia. He's considered the
Like
godfather of
TCM,
traditional Chinese medicine.
Yeah.
And even he wrote about how cannabis was used to heal gout and rheumatism and all these different ailments. And so we read these stories, and so last year Wendy and I were like, who's this Magu character? And we started digging, and we just started researching. And then we were curious because Magu shows up in ancient art and artifacts.
Yeah.
But we didn't know anything, so we asked our friend Rachel who is an East Asian art and artifact expert. And so she went through and we pulled and looked at all these different arts and sculptures and porcelain pieces over the years. And what we see is Magu depicted clearly with cannabis leaves. And so she supposedly brews the elixir of life, and she brings it down, and people drink it, and they're like, it's unfit for human consumption. And they had to water it down, and people loved it and they wanted more. And she brews this elixir in her celestial kitchen over this big fire flame. And so
Microdose beverages.
right?
She got a microdose it for the mortals.
Yeah, but there's so many medicinal benefits of cannabis that were used in that way that can still be used, but that's not the way that cannabis is being used now. We look at it as recreation. We've been taught that it's this recreational drug, but what we forget is that it's medicine, and it's been used as medicine for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And for us, in Asia, cannabis is so illegal because of the US's policies that it's life in prison. We knew somebody who was just arrested in Tokyo, and it's really scary, the consequence of that. And yet, if you look through, there's this thread of cannabis as medicine in our history that was just erased and villainized and demonized. So it makes us ask why. And so pulling these stories, retelling them, recreating, and kind of reviving this Magu character, she inspires us.
Yeah.
We look at it as wow, there's this really powerful, independent deity woman figure who embraces cannabis as healing. And how do we channel our own inner Magus as we move through and host these events and gatherings and conversations to make sure that we're using cannabis in a way that heals.
Yeah.
Right, as a protector of women and children and caring for people in our communities, and just that story of the peach.
It's also a revolution to, be able to have that history and enjoy cannabis now. It's after all, just in that story, right? All the attempts to keep her from supporting that woman, it didn't stop her from ultimately needing that task or that purpose. And it's the same thing. It's okay, you can outlaw cannabis, and that's a portion of history, but that's not going to stop me right now in this moment from enjoying it, learning the history, and kind of healing that political trauma, I guess you could say, for myself, which is where it all starts. That's really cool. It's ultimately no one can truly take your power.
Yeah, and it's so nuanced and intersectional, as we've discussed with most things in life. Is also we were looking at who's documenting these images of Magu, right? Who's telling her story?
Yeah.
And it's not women, it's not Asian women, and so we really wanted to reinterpret and encourage other people to take inspiration from her and from what she means to you, because it's so connected. We're so connected to God, or whatever your concept of, your religion of God is. It's I feel throughout different religions and philosophies, it's about finding that light that God in you that connects. And so it's about kind of breaking apart, well, what does she mean? What does she symbolizes to us now moving forward too in the future that we need to usher in, and a lot of that is this feminist healing type of thinking. And there's so much intersecting with how we look at this feminine plant, like the flowers we smoke, right? She's feminine. And part of Taoism, what Magu comes from, also touts a lot of feminist values too. So that's also been really cool to rediscover parts of our own culture that we didn't even know about that really resonates with who we are now. So we thought it's really important to bring that conversation back and have people feel more enlightened and connected with whether they are Chinese or not, to this part of our culture.
It makes me think when you said it's that God in you, and maybe this is like the deepest icebreaker question ever, but if you were a deity, what would your goddess or God be? Like if you were like made into a deity and you had to you got to be like, this is the God I am, what would that be?
I feel like we have the answers to this.
Yeah, I mean, like literally that was the question of the fashion show that we threw, where everybody got to come dressed and be part of this live fashion exhibit in the garden. So it was like goddess garden party.
I feel like we need to back up a little bit though. Okay, the whole Magu, so we took this idea of who's Magu, and then Wendy was like, let's do a photo shoot. Let's take this trope of these old, Chinese scholars in the garden, imbibing in the garden. And usually women are a part of those pictures, but they're usually in service of the men, right? And only do you see Magu in more standing more in power. And so we wanted to turn that trope on its head and do this photo shoot of us as modern Magus, but in the style of those old scrolls where instead of the old Asian male scholars, it's us as the goddesses. So what kind of came out, we all kind of embodied a character. Wendy is Magu the chef, and so you see that here in our events and here in this beautiful kitchen when we decorate it for the Mogu Magu events, is this is now this is the celestial kitchen, right? And Wendy is embodying Magu the chef, and she's so in the photo series she's cooking with fire, we have smoke bombs, there's colors, it's all about food, enjoyment, right? What does she bring? And I see you channel Magu too in your food and your cooking, inspired by different ingredients and traditional Chinese medicines. And I think some of the food and the menu that you create for our events are some of the most innovative and interesting I've seen, honestly.
Thank you.
And they're so thoughtful. And our friend Rachel, who was the East Asian arts expert, she's Magu the scholar, and she's very scholarly. And she was, when we did the photo shoot, it just kind of happened. It wasn't planned, but it was meant to be. She's holding this statue, and she's wearing a silk robe and a joint crown, and she kind of looks like this Statue of Liberty.
Wow.
But and she's wearing these cute little Chinese glasses, and she's holding this scroll, and on the scroll it says longevity.
Wow.
And that just happened to be at our Auntie Ophelia's house where we were doing the photo shoot. She just happened to have it. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was just fuck.
Yeah, and it was just so beautiful, but also because it was very ethereal, but also very powerful.
Yeah.
So a lot of juxtaposition of what does the feminine divine look like embodied, and it was so much fun.
Yeah.
And we pieced traditional garments with really edgy accessories and things like that, and hairstyles. We did all of our own styling, and our friend Angela Pai came and helped us do some styling too. We did all makeup, hair.
So that photo shoot was the start of this idea. We're taking this idea of who are the modern Magus, and putting that out in the world and kind of giving ourselves an identity. And so mine was Magu the entertainer. So my role in these is I'm the hostess, I'm the entertainer. I have all the details, all the things, offering stuff very much like what we were doing last night at an event that we were at. Both of us were kind of entertaining. She was being Tina from Moonmaid Farms, I was with Radical Herbs, it's the conversation, it's the hostessing. And so when we did the fashion event with Da Wong, it was we were wearing all of the Da Wong clothes as the god, because people thought they were coming and they were all going to be dressed as Magu, so because we invited them to dress as their inner goddess, but we were all wearing Da Wong.
So like we were the fashion show, but everybody got to come and like channel their own inner Magu and like find that for themselves. And
some of them even bought pieces
totally
and put it on because they liked it so much.
Yeah, it was so cool.
Our friend Daisy Wong, her clothing, when we found out about her through our other friends, Kayla and them. Oh yeah, I'm wearing Wong right now.
Oh my god!
So you know, all of her pieces are so special because they're really like channeling these like more traditional Asian brocade type of silk patterns, but they're woven in these button details, but then they're like super cute and streetwear and like ready wear type stuff. And every season she comes out with such amazing outfits, and she does really cool collaborations. So when we found out about her brand through Kayla at Lang, we were like, wow, her clothes literally embody like what we see as like this future or present day Magu. So we're like, okay, we have to do a fashion Mogu Magu collab.
You have to keep the name Modern Magu. I don't know what that's gonna be, but you have to keep that. Like, it'll come in handy at some point. I was like, oh, I just love that. Just really opened up a thing for me. So something that you talk about often is feminizing consciousness. And when I think about that, I think about reframing what I think femininity is and feminine power is. But when you talk about that really big idea, what do you mean?
Yeah, and and this is so related to what we were just talking about with Magu and Taoism. And in Taoism, these male or masculine traits and feminine traits are seen as more equal and non-binary and something that everybody can embody, and you look at like where our society is now and what kind of attributes are rewarded, it's been totally dominantly masculine. And most countries, right, like live under a very patriarchal type of social system and culture, and so like, and it's not that everything masculine is bad, it's really not. Sometimes I have to like really lean on my masculine energy to achieve something, and it's been very helpful. But I think it's about the balance, right, of both. And right now, because we're so depleted of that feminine consciousness, the way of, so what we mean by that is like we break it down to specific attributes, right? Feminine types of feminization of our consciousness is to approach life and see things and people and yourself with these feminine values, like being more empathetic and more holistic, more community oriented. Maybe that means slowing down and more planning, and just more circumspective type of inclusive, empathetic approach to life. And less, I mean, even if you think about our vernacular, it's so this like dominate, kill, oh, you killed that, break it, like everything is so violent, and even though it's like when we say it, we're not meaning those things, but it's just become so common because like more masculine traits are more valued. It's celebrated, and feminine traits are seen as weak, and unnecessary. And so what we want to bring back is like, hey, there are a lot of ways that feminine values and women and feminine leaders have, or feminist leaders, that are non-binary or male, who have leaned on these kind of ways of thinking, these more feminized ways of thinking, to really heal communities, to really achieve a lot of great advancements. And that's what we need right now. And it's not to say that we need to reject everything that we have, but like, it does make you question, does this need to be that fast? Does this need to grow infinitely? Right? Look what like infinite growth and exploitation of capitalism has done to like so many generations. And So it really makes you question, is this really better for us? You know,
Yeah.
feminizing consciousness is also thinking about things in a more sustainable, long-term kind of way, you know, and it's not just sustainability from a environmental perspective, but it's very tied to, you know, these other, like, you know, land and people, indigeneity. Like, it makes us think about things more long-term and more holistic and more empathetic rather than
Sometimes-
just domination.
As you were saying that, I think about, like, when you said, does this need to go that much faster? Sometimes I think with technology, they're always like, we're forward thinking. But sometimes there's wisdom in thinking a little bit backwards and reviving things that we did before that we may have, like, taken for granted or not have valued the way that we should.
Right. Growth is not linear, right? I mean,
not
we say that
linear.
in their language, but it also applies to our human advancements, you know?
Yeah.
It's like growth is not linear. And when we get stuck on the linear or a binary of like, oh, this is good, only this kind of advancement is, like, you know, considered valued. I mean, you look at the healthcare system,
Yeah.
you know? Like, America is so advanced, yet some of the worst
Completely
conditions.
disconnected.
Yeah, when you think about the human reality of it.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's ranked very, very low for people actually getting the benefits
Care,
of that
yeah.
healthcare, you know? So,
That was the first thing I thought of when I said that too. I was like, it would be nice. It's great to have deeper imaging, better conversations. It's great to have, like, more advancements with the illnesses that plague society, I guess, if you will. But wouldn't it be great to be more in touch with holistic remedies too? Wouldn't it be great to be, like, in preventative care just as much as we're in palliative care?
these are beautiful.
Yeah, getting better at it now.
I'm so excited.
Wow. Should I go check on the other ones? They might be done.
It said 15 minutes, so we got 5 more minutes.
On the first batch?
Yeah.
She said, I'm just ready to eat cookies.